Hey everybody, it's Tony from Adafruit, and I wanted to do a fun stream to look at emulator performance on the Raspberry Pi 3. So I've got a Raspberry Pi 3 and it's connected up, and I've got a little HDMI capture card, so you're actually seeing right now the output of the Raspberry Pi right on the screen behind me here. And I've got RetroPie set up, so I'm using a little Xbox controller here. This is one of the fancy, the old silver ones. I don't know why they stopped making these, this style of controller. This was a really good controller. But I've got it connected up. This is using RetroPie, which is a distribution that has all the emulators and pretty much everything ready to go. You just have to supply all the games. You load it up onto the SD card. And it's pretty straightforward. It's got a nice little interface here. It takes a little while to set up though, so it's not like necessarily simple plug and play. I had to go in and edit a lot of config options to get all the controllers and stuff working. But once it's working, it seems to do pretty well with things. So I've got it set up. This is the very latest version of it. It's version 3.6, and for the Raspberry Pi 3, you need to use this version because the earlier versions, they don't have the right firmware for the Pi 3. So this is what you want to use for it. And I've loaded up, and we're going to play a bunch of games, and I won't play any game for a long amount of time, but I wanted to see, how well can the Raspberry Pi 3 work just to play old emulated classic games. So like the Raspberry Pi 2 and Model 1, they're pretty popular for playing a lot of classic games, things like the NES, Atari 2600, Super Nintendo, those type of games, and it works really well. And so the Pi 3, it's got a little bit faster processor, 1.2 gigahertz of speed, still quad cores, although for most of your video games and emulation like this, you're only going to use one core. A lot of things really aren't very multi-threaded, so even though you have four pretty fast processors, it doesn't mean you've got the equivalent of like a 4 gigahertz processor. So it's still going to be some pretty good performance, but don't expect to run the very latest systems. But we'll see how far we can crank it. So the systems I wanted to test out. Let's see, I've got it set up to play the original NES, the Game Boy, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, the PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, and the PlayStation Portable. And when this video goes up on YouTube, I'll put in the description a link to maybe like the time code for each of those systems if you just want to skip ahead and see how something performs. So let's just kind of dive right into it. We'll start with Nintendo here. So we've got a fun game, couple fun games here to play. So my favorite game in the world is Mega Man 2. Oh, and also before I start this, so the sound, I have the sound output through the little 3.5 millimeter audio jack. It's just going to this little speaker here. Now that's kind of weird. It changes the white balance. So I'm just playing it on a speaker. You'll probably hear it a little bit through my microphone. I couldn't figure out a good way to do audio, like to split the audio. I don't have an audio capture for this machine yet, so the audio might be a little bit muffled, but I'll kind of say if the audio sounds good or not to me, because one of the things we want to see, can you play the game, does it look good, but then does it also sound good, because you've got to emulate also the sound and the graphics here. So let's just dive in and we'll play what is probably my favorite game ever, Mega Man 2 on the classic NES Nintendo system. So this already is looking pretty good, and even the original Pi and Pi 2, these ran Nintendo games perfectly. The sound sounds really good. Let's see, I'll crank it up a little bit louder. So yeah, I won't play much of this. I'll just play maybe like one of the bosses. But this is a classic game. The NES came out in 1985. I think this game was like 88, or it wasn't initially out with the launch. But this one, it's great. Lots of action, lots of difficult levels, but it's the kind of difficulty where it's rewarding, where it doesn't feel cheap. Like there are some cheap kills in here, but once you get into this game, it's very well balanced. So we'll start with Metal Man, which this is the one guy to go to first usually, because once you get his weapon, after you beat a boss, you get their weapon. It almost breaks the game. You'll use Metal Man's weapon pretty much everywhere. So performance-wise, this is looking pretty good. Of course, just die right off the bat. It's a little bit tough because I'm watching through the capture card, so there's some extra latency here, and I've got a wireless controller, so the purists would want to play with the CRT television and directly connected to it for the fastest response. But it's not looking bad to me so far. And as I play a little bit, you'll see things kind of flicker a little bit, and that's not a problem with the emulator. That's actually the way the Nintendo originally worked. If you got a bunch of sprites on the screen, then you'd see some flickers like this. So this is actually extra nostalgic, I think. They've done a good job on the emulation here. So, oops, uh-oh, just got hit there. This is the worst part of this level, is this beginning where you've got these stupid things to dodge. And then the rest of the level is not too bad from what I remember. This part's a little funky. You get like these... I thought they were like ears of corn originally when I saw this. They're like metal drills that come out of the ground. Great place to kind of farm a lot of items here. Like if you want to get one-ups, sometimes they'll randomly drop one. But you just kind of have to charge your way through here and just shoot anything that moves. So we'll get through this part. Oop, almost through here. And yeah, the sound sounds great. You know, Nintendo emulator, this is pretty much old hat for emulation. So the Nintendo had a 6502 8-bit processor, which is, you know, pretty legendary processor as far as, you know, used in lots of classic hardware. There's even a documentary I heard Jason Scott's working on. So hopefully, you know, maybe in the near future we'll see that. I'm sure it's going to mention Nintendo Entertainment System. You know, all kinds of different game systems used it. So, okay, well, these guys are kind of fun. You gotta let them fall down, and they'll respawn if you walk backwards and come back to the screen. So you just kind of have to keep moving. That's basically the story of Mega Man. Keep moving, shoot things, don't get hit. All right, get rid of this guy. Get through here. A few more of these guys left. Oh, need that health. All right, go here. Now, it's been a long time since I've played, and I've beaten this game, but I was not the best. After you beat the initial bosses, you go, geez. Of course, the little frame latency there kind of screws it up. After you beat the bosses, you go to kind of the Dr. Wily level, which is a little bit more challenging of a stage, and that's where it really gets fun. So, okay, well, I think I'm going to stop Mega Man. I think it's safe to say Nintendo looks good. Real quick, I'll just play another game. This is something I learned about maybe in the last year or so. Game, it only came out in Japan, called Holy Diver, and it is a wacky game. So it's not officially based on the singer Ronnie James Dio. It's kind of like an unofficial game about him. So you play as Dio, and you go through, and it's basically like a Castlevania kind of knockoff, just with like different graphics. But it's surprisingly cool. So, like, you know, you've got a character here, you can jump. The controls are a little slow, but, you know, that's not the emulation's fault. I think it's just the way this game was. I've got like a fireball I can shoot. You know, it's kind of limited range, and that's about it. Like basically jumping and shooting. But I think this is just the craziest idea for a game. You know, heavy metal. Pretty sure every heavy metal singer would love to have a game like this made after them. And it's actually pretty cool. I mean, this is, you know, action game, a little difficult. I'm amazed they never brought it over to America. It was probably, you know, they're probably too worried about getting sued or something. So a little bit of a hidden gem here. And it runs really well. Music sounds good, so, you know, no complaints there. So that's another fun one, Holy Diver. So, okay, so let's go and let's play maybe the next system, the Game Boy, we'll kind of go roughly chronological here. So original Game Boy. This is one of my favorite systems. I think I got this like Christmas 1990, I want to say. Came out in 89, so I think I got it a year later. And oh man, this is probably one of the best systems ever. One of the best games ever also, Metroid 2. Right up there with Mega Man 2 in my opinion as far as like best games ever. Really sad that they haven't remade this, or I think it came out on Virtual Console on the Wii recently, but you know, this, if you've never played Metroid 2 and if you're a fan of Metroids, you've got to go back and play this one because it is a really excellent Metroid game. I love the Game Boy emulator in this. So off the bat, you can see the color scheme they use. Like this is exactly what the original Game Boy looked like. Now, to make it true to the original Game Boy, it should be like super dim, and you have to have, you know, a light over your shoulder to see how to play it. You know, that was the true Game Boy experience. But this is pretty close to that. The sounds pretty good. I mean, you can hear, you know, this game, the music in it is excellent. Just very well done. I think it was Gunpei Yoki or something like that, I think is the name of the guy that created the Metroid series. I could be totally wrong, so apologies if I'm wrong there. But, you know, this is just a classic game. So you play as Samus Aran, the bounty hunter, as she travels through. In this game, I think it's SR-388 is the name of the planet. Kind of like Aliens, and you're going into this world, you've got these crazy aliens that are attacking you, the Metroids. And this game is kind of unique in that you have to hunt down all the Metroids. And so there's actually a count, and I think my body here is kind of covering it up. So yeah, you can kind of see that 39 there. That's telling you how many Metroids are active in this area. And so I actually have to go and find all 39 of them. And the Metroids will evolve in this game. So they start out kind of easy. They'll just fly around and try and attack you. And every few levels, they get a lot bigger, a lot faster. So this is just awesome game. The thing I love about this game is the graphic style. That, you know, even though it's black and white, I think it works really well, and it makes it really creepy. It gives it like this really nice atmosphere. You know, you're going around these caves. Like if you were really in these caves, you know, they're not going to be colorful. Probably it's going to be this dark, dingy place. So emulation-wise, this seems pretty much perfect to me, and that's no surprise. I think this is probably perfect on the older Raspberry Pis also. So, you know, this is an awesome game. Definitely worth playing. I just want to keep playing this one. This is a good one. So, all right. So we'll consider Game Boy a success. Let's see. Let's move on to Super Nintendo. So this is another classic system from back in the day. So this one, let's see. Where is it? Yeah, there we go. Super Nintendo. So I've got a couple games here. Maybe we'll play Cybernator first. So this is a favorite game of mine from Super Nintendo. I remember I got Super Nintendo, oh boy, probably like 93 or so. It was a little bit after it came out. And I mean, this was like, you know, the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, it just had a divide between everyone in school. You know, some people liked the Genesis, some people liked the Super Nintendo. Some people had both, which, whoa, you know, uh-oh, you're made of money if you had both of those systems. But I had the Super Nintendo, and, you know, this was an excellent system. Based on a processor, 16-bit processor. I can't remember the exact name, but it has a 6502 inside of it, or it's compatible with all the 6502, which is what the Nintendo Entertainment System used. But then it had some 16-bit extensions. An interesting note, it's the same processor that the Apple IIgs computer used. So, you know, in a far-out, crazy future, maybe you could have played Super Nintendo games on the 2GS. I mean, the other hardware, like the sound chips and the graphics chips, weren't the same. But kind of cool, and makes you kind of wonder, like, why would they have put a chip in the Super Nintendo that could play the original Nintendo games, like the 6502 instructions? You know, maybe they were thinking about backwards compatibility and, you know, probably had to cut it out or something. But Cybernator, this is a fun game. You know, maybe not super common, but it's a little kind of action game. You know, you play as a mech, and it's basically a shooter, and you know, you move around almost like Contra. You control this mech, you can jump around, and you have all kinds of guns. But then at the end of certain levels, it'll go into like a flying level where you'll have to pilot your mech through different things. You know, just really well done kind of action game. Now, the one thing I noticed, okay, yeah, this is actually running pretty well. When I was testing it earlier, it was like running a lot faster than it normally should. So, okay, yeah, there's a little bit of exposition here. Come on, blah, blah, blah. Basically, you're on this attack ship and you're coming down on a planet. You've got to go blow things up. So I have this mech in the center here. I can jump around. There's a flying thing I've got too somewhere. What's the button that I use for that? Let's see. I can change weapons. So I've got like a punch, you know, short range, and I've got a gun, and you kind of move the gun around and aim it. Oh, there's some kind of a slide that I just did. I forget what a lot of the controls are for this, but the fun thing is, like, you'll upgrade your weapons, and so you just kind of go around. Music sounds great, so I'm hearing the kind of original music. So this is a good game. Kind of go around, maybe shoot some more of these robots. Oh, come on, take this guy out. So it's a little bit kind of clunky, the controls, because you've got to rotate your gun around. You know, you don't have analog sticks, so back in the Super Nintendo, you just have the directional pad. So if you like Contra, that kind of style of game, if you like big mechs, this is definitely a good game to check out. Just take this guy out. Let's see if I can get to the end level here real quick, or the end of this level, because the next level is one of those shooter levels, which is kind of neat. So it's just kind of cool to see. Oh, that was I think that powers up my weapon, so now my gun's a little bit bigger. So yeah, we'll keep going here. Jump up here, take these things out. I kind of like that I don't have to shoot everything to get through this level, you know? It's like you just keep charging through. Take these guys out. Basically, I need to get towards the end of the level here. I remember there's like this reactor core that comes down. You gotta like blow it up. Oh man, uh-oh, this is not a good spot that I'm in right here. Uh-oh. Yeah, you have like a limited kind of jump jet that you can fly around with. Uh-oh, I just keep going. Alright, I think I'm pretty close. Yeah, here we go. Here's the reactor. Alright, basically just shoot everything. I remember this. These like guns kind of come down and... Oh, that's good. Energy. That's probably what I needed. Alright, gotta take this guy out. Uh-oh. Oh, there's the core. Alright, let's just hammer on this. Oh, no. Uh-oh. It's kind of annoying. Like, if you start falling down, you have to fly back up. And it's a little bit slow. Ah, geez, come on. I'm gonna fly back up here. Alright, take... And I remember you have to take out the core before it gets up to the top, or else you're really in trouble. Alright, take out some of those things. I think I... Uh-oh. Oh, that's just half of the core. And uh-oh, I'm low on health. Might not make it. I'm just going in guns blazing here. Oh, come on, take it out. Oh, I think I got like one more hit. Oh, that's it. So it's a fun game. Definitely worth checking out. The other game I wanted to play real quick, we'll test out the performance on Star Fox. Oh, uh-oh, well, that's weird. Just jumped over to Sega CD. Okay. So let's do Star Fox. Now, this is a classic game. Oops, I pressed the wrong button here. So this came out towards the end of the Super Nintendo's lifespan, probably around like 95 or so. The big thing is that it has 3D graphics because it includes the Super FX chip, which from what I understand is just like a little DSP, maybe even a floating point processor. So it's not even like a polygon render. Like it's literally just speeding up the math for here. So you can kind of see like, yeah, it's got 3D graphics, but these are like old school, flat shaded, you know, low polygon, which for the time for Super Nintendo, like this was pretty epic. I mean, you didn't see this on a game console. So that's the music. Music sounds great. You know, 3D looks great. So I think we can consider Super Nintendo pretty well emulated. Let's see. I'll just start real quick. The music in this game in particular is just really well done. It's awesome. I'll play a little bit of the start here. So this is a fun game. I like the characters too. It's like these crazy. Like in what future is a dog a general of space and a fox? And he's got the rabbit, the frog. I remember this intro, watching this back in the day, and just it was amazing the Super Nintendo could do this kind of thing. And you know, even though it's low polygon, like it works. This art style is just really well done. Like the R-wing, I think it's the R-wing or maybe the A-wing. I can't remember the name of the jet that you fly. Really cool. Like, you know, it's only maybe like 20 polygons, but just with those polygons, you know, you can tell like that's a spaceship. So okay, so here we are. If I remember correctly, yeah. So I'm kind of moving this center guy around. The controls are inverted, so you have to press up to go down and down to go up. So it takes a little while to get used to that. You know, more modern games don't have that. Oh yeah, that's my buddy there. I think Skippy, is that the toad, or maybe that's the rabbit? So, and that was kind of cool too, part of this game, how, you know, you've got your wingmen and they're talking to you, and they'll actually ask you for help sometimes. You know, they'll get an enemy chasing them. Oops, I missed that power up. Just fly straight into that. Alright, but this is running pretty well. You know, the frame rate is a little choppy, but that's actually the way this normally ran. Like, this was not a 60 frame per second game on Super Nintendo by any stretch. But just the fact that it ran, you know, and you could see these kind of 3D graphics was pretty cutting edge for the time. And you know, this is still a fun game. Oh, I took his kill, so he's mad at me. That was always kind of fun about this game too. Is like, you know, it feels like your wingmen are actually like real things. Like if they're being chased, you know, they'll ask you for help, and if you shoot the guy that's chasing them, then they'll thank you and stuff. That's kind of cool. I think that was an invulnerability or something, or maybe a shield upgrade that I got. So, you know, I think this is still a pretty fun game. It's kind of like Space Harrier, you know, some of those early like 3D games. There's not a lot going on, but it's still pretty action oriented. So yeah, I've got a little boost here I can do. I think for the time, you know, this was a pretty cool game, and it holds up. And hopefully, I think this year they're supposed to have a new Star Fox on the Wii U, I want to say. So I'll be curious to see what that's like. And, you know, do they keep kind of this older style? I haven't really played a lot of Nintendo systems since after Super Nintendo. I kind of stopped, so we'll play a little N64. But I really didn't have N64 back in the day. Okay, all right, here we got to help out. I think Falco is the guy that will take that guy out. There we go. Oh, great! So I took out the guy chasing you, and you're yelling at me for it. So nice going. The guy's kind of a jerk. Maybe next time I'll remember that. We won't help him out. So okay, I think it's safe to say that Star Fox runs well, and Star Fox is probably one of the more taxing games for the system. I think there were some crazier ones like Castlevania. Some of them had some really advanced sound chips and things that are harder to emulate. But so far, Super Nintendo, I'm going to consider that one a pretty good success. So let's go to Genesis. So let's see. Sega does what Nintendo don't. That was from back in the day. Now, I never had a Genesis, or Mega Drive, I think is what it's called in Europe. I had some friends that had one, but I remember Sonic Spinball. I really like this game. I mean, Sonic is like the classic. That's the game that kind of, you think of Genesis, you think of Sonic. But the Spinball version is pretty fun. So this is like a pinball game where you act as Sonic. And already it's looking pretty good. So you can hear the music. That sounds pretty good. And that was one thing that the Genesis had. I think the music was a little punchier than Super Nintendo. Like, I think it's kind of a toss-up to say like which one was better, which one was worse. But a lot of the Genesis games, I think, had a little more memorable music. So, all right, how do I start this thing up? Come on, let's go. There we go. So I'll just play a little bit. It's basically pinball, but you act as Sonic. The thing I remember about this game is that the levels are just really well done. Like they're big. There are lots of little things you have to unlock to go through each level. Like this beginning level, I think you're kind of in like a sewer stage. And I remember there's like a casino level that's really cool with all kinds of like lights and things going on. But yeah, as far as gameplay goes, like it's pinball. You've got flippers, and that's about it that you can control. I'm just pressing one of the buttons that does both the flippers. I think you can individually do each of them, but you know what? Just might as well run both. That's all I remember the controls. I mean, maybe there was like a tilt or something. But this is a fun one. Good pinball game. So, and it seems to run pretty well. You know, looks. Oh yeah. That's a little bit of a danger there. So I remember I have to do something and unlock these doors to the left and right. Oh, jump out of the way there. Yeah, that door that I just banged into, you do something and you unlock that. The physics in this are a little sketchy, like most 2D pinball games like this were. So it's certainly not pinball for purists, but this was a fun one. Let's see if I can just hit this thing to unlock this door. Oh man, totally missed it. This is another one where playing with a little bit of latency makes it difficult. You know, your controls, got a wireless controller and you're playing through a capture card. There we go. All right, I think that's going to open up. Yeah, safety lid's open. There we go. Let's see if we can get up here. Oh, come on. Where are these things at? Uh-oh. Okay, cool. That good. At least it's a forgiving pinball game. A lot of pinball games, it's like you get in the wrong spot and you're out of there. Oh, and now I need to hit these little targets to unlock them, I think. Uh-oh. All right, did something. Cork popping up, it said. I just want to see if I can get out of this opening area. Come on. Uh-oh. Man, come on, I have to get out of here somehow. I'm just taking the mash the flipper approach to playing pinball. I am not very good at pinball in real life, so I'm sure there's a little bit more strategy to this. Like, you've got to probably stop the ball. So, let's see. That's kind of a mechanical thing. Cluck alert. Excellent. Oh, that's kind of cool. That's Oh, just bit the dust there. So, all right. Well, that's Genesis. I think it's safe to say performance is pretty good. I mean, that seems pretty playable to me. So let's jump to the Game Boy Advance. So let's see. Yeah, this is another good system. So fun portable system. Let's do Metroid Zero Mission. So Game Boy Advance, I love this system. You know, this is probably one of my most favorite systems. I would still play it today. I unfortunately lost all my old Game Boy games. Had some fun flooding incidents years ago. But this is one I come back to. Now this is a retelling of the original Metroid from the NES, but they remade it and really put some polish on this game. This is an excellent game. So let's see, we'll just start new game. Similar to like Metroid 2 that you saw, 2D platformer, but beautiful graphics in this. They also fixed some things up in here. So the original Metroid had, like, you didn't have a map or anything. You just threw you into the game, and it was good luck. The map was like, you had to go buy Nintendo Power to get that. But this one has like a map. You can equip and unequip things. You can crouch and shoot in this one, which was a big improvement. But everything is exactly the same level-wise as the original. Oh, come on, that was a bad idea. So immediately go left to get the morph ball. That lets you turn into a little ball, so you can get under passages. So, yep, okay, morph ball. Yep, telling me I've got it, how to use it. Which, that's kind of nice. The original didn't have that kind of a menu. It didn't tell you, here's how to use it. But emulation-wise, so you can hear the music. It sounds pretty good. There's a little bit of scratchiness. And I actually had to do one thing. So in RetroPie, I had to tell it to use a different emulator. It was trying to use, I can't remember the name of the emulator, but like the default one just wasn't working with any of the games I was trying. So I switched it to the VBA Next emulator, and that's what I'm using here. I think it's like Visual Boy Advance, and that seems to run pretty well. But yeah, the sound is a little bit, I mean, it doesn't sound bad, but it doesn't sound perfect either. So it's, it's not bad, but the game plays well. Like, this is pretty smooth. Definitely seems playable here. Take this guy out. Oh, maybe not. So I'll just play a little bit more of this. But yeah, this is great. Oh, I hate these guys. These ceiling guys. I think they're Zebites or something like that. Now this is always a little bit of a troll. There's like an energy up here, I want to say. Or maybe they took it out of this version of the game. But I remember you could see that, and you couldn't get it until you get like the high jump boots later in the game. So, okay, yeah, now this is actually different. This was not in the original. There were some things they did, I think, to add in. So this is kind of showing you, here's a map of the area. Oh yeah, and this is actually telling you where you need to go, because that's another fun thing about the classic Metroid game. It never told you what you had to do. It's not like games today that hold your hand and are like, okay, go over there, take cover, do this. It was just like, you're in the world, and I remember just spending hours just going through every level trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? Like, I must have missed something. So that was kind of the fun of a lot of the games back then. So it's nice that they've kind of made it a little bit slicker and easier for people to get into these days. So, but this is running pretty well, and Game Boy Advance had a ton of games, lots of really classic two-dimensional games like this. So I'm going to consider that a success. I think this runs pretty well. Metroid Fusion is another fun one that's definitely worth checking out. If you like Metroid games. So some people probably think that that's maybe one of the best Metroid games ever. So, okay, let's see what's next. Let's do Nintendo 64. So this is where the original Pi, I think, starts to fall down a little bit. Maybe the Pi 2, where it gets a little bit tougher to do some of these later systems like this one. So let's do N64. Now, I never had this system as a kid, so I missed out on a lot. Luckily, a lot of these games you can go back and play. Now let's do Super Mario 64. Doom 64 is a really neat version of Doom, and luckily somebody made a total conversion of it, or they basically remade it so you can run it on the PC now. And it's Doom, but with a little bit of a different style to it. Like, they added colored lighting like you saw in Quake and Quake 2, or in Quake 2. They changed some of the levels because the Super Nintendo didn't have as much memory. So it's actually a different game, and it's much like darker and weirder. There are different enemies in it. It's a cool game. It's worth playing sometime. But let's just do this. Is, if there's any game, I mean, even I played this. I didn't have the system, but I remember going over to a friend's house as soon as he got it to go play this.
Me, Mario.
So this looks pretty good. You can hear the sound.
Hello.
And this is looking pretty good as far as emulation goes. Let me turn the sound down a teeny bit. So I'll just start a new game. But yeah, like I said, I am not good at this game.
Hey, Mario.
So I'll have to apologize for probably not doing the right things. But it is a fun game. It's withstood the test of time, I think, as far as for being one of the first 3D games that like everyone played and saw, like a 3D platformer. At the time, there really weren't a lot of platform games like this that were doing 3D. You know, there's like Doom, Quake, those kind of games. No one really tried to make a Mario game in 3D, so this was pretty cutting edge for the time, and still pretty cool, I think. It definitely feels like a Mario game. You know, they really got the playfulness of it. And performance-wise, I mean, this seems pretty perfect to me. It almost looks like it's rendering things too well. Like, if you see the textures in the background, you know, I don't remember the Nintendo 64 having that good of texture filtering. So, you know, I have a feeling this is one of these things where, like, it's doing a better job playing the game, you know, as an emulator than the original hardware, which there are two sides of the coin. Like, some people like that. I mean, it's kind of cool to be able to play these old games with better graphics. But it's you know, some people want that true experience, you know, the original system. And so I'm sure there are ways you can probably turn on different filters. So, okay, so I go into the castle, and I think this is the first level that you usually want to go into. The bomb level. Jump in there. And we'll just play a little bit of this. Bomb on the summit. Alright, here we go. Alright, so yeah. I'm trying to remember the controls to this one. Now this one's a little tough. I'm using the Xbox controller. It maps pretty well to the N64 controller. But like I said, yeah, I didn't really have the N64 back in the day. But like the right analog stick, I think, controls kind of the camera. Left analog stick kind of moves you around. Stay away from him. Oh, that was not smart. That was one thing about this game. The camera was not the best because it kind of moves around. You know, it took a few years for people to figure out what's the best way to do a camera in a game like this. So, you know, I think they were still working on it at this point. All right, stay away from him. Oh, I see. Things kind of moving. All right, arrows are telling me to go this way, so we'll go this way. Oh yeah, I remember this, right. So you gotta climb up this mountain. But performance-wise, I'm impressed. Like, this seems pretty good to me. It's unfortunate I couldn't get Doom 64 to run, though, which I'd love to be able to play that. So it could be kind of hit or miss. And one thing in particular, definitely check out the wiki. I'll put a link in the description. Check out the wiki for RetroPie, because it basically has a list of all the systems and then all of the games. There's like a Google spreadsheet they put in that shows the compatibility. And so it'll tell you if a game is known working or not. And I actually just noticed they have a new column for the Raspberry Pi 3, so I think people are starting to put in kind of their experience with it. So, alright, let's see. I know I need to kind of hide out a little bit sometimes. Whatever, we'll just go for it. And then at the top, now I'm really going to start sucking, because I know I have to get up here and I have to throw this guy off, but it's been a long time since I've played this, so we'll see what I can do. Yep. Oh, well, that's the end of that. Okay, good, he didn't throw me off. I think you have to get behind him, I think, right? That's what you're supposed to do. Oh, jeez. Oh, come on. Alright, well, I'm going to stop playing, but... So that seems pretty good. I'm going to consider the Nintendo 64 pretty... You know, that's passing. I could definitely play that for this. So, okay, let's go back and let's play another awesome system. Let's do the PlayStation. This was, you know... This is actually the system I got after Super Nintendo. This is the first one that I bought, you know, with my own money. Remember, I sold my Super Nintendo, and I sold every game. I had, like, you know, Chrono Trigger, all the Squaresoft RPGs. I sold them all. Now those things are worth, like, you know, $100 each. So kicking myself in the butt. But at the time, I fell into the hype of the PlayStation full force. Also because that was where, you know, Final Fantasy VII and Squaresoft was going. So, and I love those games on Super Nintendo, so it was kind of like, okay, I've got to go get the PlayStation. But PlayStation itself just had a great library of games. So this is a favorite of mine, Armored Core. This is a mech game from a company called From Software, which they went on to do some pretty crazy games like Bloodborne and what are some of the other, Dark Souls. So pretty infamous games as far as their difficulty goes. And so you can go back and play some of these earlier games of theirs. And this is a fun one. I'll just play a little bit. It's, crap, I don't want to load the game. I want to do, yeah, let's do scenario. Sure, let's do new game. Pilot name, just be A. All right, or Alpha. Yes. So it starts you out and it says you're gonna go and we're gonna test you. So it throws you into combat. And this is a fun little mech game. It's not a mech simulation. It's a little more arcade style, but it's a quality mech game. Like you can get into it. You can start customizing your mech. Okay, so I'm this guy in the center. You've got like jump jets here. I've got a rifle that I can shoot at. I've got missiles, and if they lock on, then you can shoot a missile. I remember the missiles in this game. Once you start upgrading them, you can get like things that fire like 10 missiles at a time. You know, they get pretty intense. So all right, let's take this guy out. There are two guys I'm fighting in here, and it's starts out a little easy, but I remember this game gets hard really fast. And it's, you know, this first little test, you just stand still and shoot people. It's not that hard. All right, let's see if we can take the missiles out. Now this game is tough because it was one of the earlier games before the DualShock controller, so the analog stick controller came out. So I don't think this game supports the analog controller, so I'm actually playing it with the D-pad right now. So it's a little harder to control. But I remember beating this game back in the day, just based on, you know, the old rough controls. All right, let's see, take this guy out with the missiles. But this is fun. It's a fast kind of action game, mech combat. There's a whole... So
from this moment on, you are a raven.
Oh wow, I'm a raven. Sound sounds good. I mean, performance-wise, this looks perfect to me. The graphics look great too. So like they look kind of chunky and blocky, and that's the way PlayStation looked. Like it didn't have good texture filtering and things like that. So okay, now once you get into the game, there's a lot more to it. You know, you can go into the store, you can buy weapon upgrades. Oh, I don't have any credits, so I can't do anything. You can buy new mechs, you can outfit your mech. They don't call them mechs in this. They call them ACs. I can't remember what that means. Let's see, let's go to the garage. Let's see what my mech looks like. So you can kind of see, yeah, here's your mech. And nice, pretty cool graphics. I mean, that's neat little 3D model rendering around. So you can change things. This is a fun game. This is worth playing. They had a bunch of sequels. I think they're still even making this. I want to say like PlayStation, maybe the PS Vita had a version of this, or maybe PS4 even. That's a quality game. The other game, I'll just play this for a second, but Resident Evil, this one is a classic PlayStation game. They've remade this like 3 times now, and the remake that's the latest one is really nice. It's worth picking up. It's on Steam and all these systems. But quality-wise, like this seems perfect emulation-wise. I don't see any problems here. The sound sounds great, so you know that's pretty cool. Like this could be a good PlayStation emulator, the Pi 3. So a fun little full motion video intro. All these old PlayStation games. This was that era when it was like, let's get a studio and let's record things because we've got CD-ROMs now and we can make these things. And not a lot of those have withstood the test of time, unfortunately. So, okay, yeah. So, oh yeah, I forgot you can choose your character in this. You can be Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield. Let's do Jill. And it does slightly change the game. I want to say each character, there are a few little points in the game where if you chose a different character, the game is different. I think the characters start with different weapons too. So, okay, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Basically, you're this police force, and you're escaping from something, and you find this mansion, like, out in the middle of nowhere. But there's some interesting things inside the mansion.
Wow.
Turn the sound up.
What a mansion!
That's not bad.
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
Now, the way this game worked, as far as rendering, these are all pre-rendered backgrounds. And then the only thing 3D, like from the 3D graphics perspective, are just the characters. So really, there's only like a few hundred polygons on the screen right now. It's just the polygons that make up these characters. But then the pre-rendered background blends in so well that, I mean, it gives you a really nice, convincing effect in this game. I mean, really well done. Again, using the limits of the hardware very well, so that you don't feel like you're constrained that much. It's funny though, when you go back and you play the remakes of this now, they look so much better than this game. This is one thing I remember from Resident Evil. All these loading screens, they hide the loading in the door animation. And so that's one thing about the PlayStation games is you get these loading screens. Oh yeah, so this is fun. So I'm controlling Jill, and this game, especially the original, the controls are rough. So it has tank-style controls, where it's not like modern games today with analog sticks. I'm actually using the D-pad. This is another one that came out before the analog sticks were around. But this is a fun game. This is cool survival horror. I mean, it's not the first. Like, there was Alone in the Dark and a lot of things before this, but definitely one of the first, like, popular survival horror games. Really set all the standards that everything in the genre follows today. I mean, when you play a Resident Evil game today, it's pretty similar and true to the formula of this original one. I forget, let's see, I've got a gun somewhere. I can go in here and, let's see, I think I have to equip this. Yeah, let's equip that, and now I should be able to use my gun somehow. There's going to be some kind of button here. Oh yeah, there we go. So use the trigger to use the gun, and then, yeah, that's how you fire it. So, fun game, definitely worth playing. If you've never played Resident Evil, I would go straight to the remake. The remake is actually pretty much the original game, and then they added a whole lot more to it, so it's a quality one. But okay, so that's PlayStation, and I'm pretty impressed. I never really tried PlayStation on the Raspberry Pi. From what I understand, like, Super Nintendo and stuff was kind of the way to go as far as, like, that was kind of the limits of it. But so far, PlayStation looks pretty good on the Pi 3. So, okay, let's try something else. So let's go back and let's try Sega Saturn. So Saturn kind of came out around this time. Now, I couldn't get this to work, and I'll just try it. Let's see. I think this runs, but you'll see it's super slow and very choppy. And actually, you have to install, this is an experimental emulator. You have to go into the experimental options and compile it. So it's not all there yet, unfortunately. And you can see, like, it's still loading. I'll let it start for a second here, and you'll see that it gets, yeah, so here it's kind of going, and you can hear the sound. So it's like really choppy. This should be running a lot faster. So unfortunately, looks like Saturn, maybe not the best system. I'm trying to play a game. This is called Parodius, or I think Parodius or Parodius. It's a little shooter. So the Saturn had a lot of shooters, which are, like you control a ship and you just fire a bunch of weapons and you either move up or you move left. This was a fun one, but unfortunately, looks like Saturn is kind of a no-go right now with the emulation. So let's do. Let's try Dreamcast. So Dreamcast was a cool system. I never had it, and this one, unfortunately, I can't get it to work. Like it starts, but it doesn't really let me get into the game. So let's kind of see. So I tried MDK2. This is a really cool game. You can actually get it. It was an old PC game. I think you can still get it on like GOG.com. But real cool third-person action game. Lots of jumping puzzles, I remember, which it's from that kind of late 90s era when third-party jumping puzzles were all the rage, and those have not aged very well. The other one, let's see if we can play Rez. Rez is an awesome game. This one, luckily, they've re-released it. I think you can get it on Xbox 360 and stuff. So you can see, like, this is running well. Sound is good, its emulation seems nice, but this is like the BIOS or whatever. So all right, I'm gonna set the clock. I like how it starts at 1998. It's like, wow. 2016, you got to ratchet it up a few years. This is kind of annoying. For some reason the control doesn't work here. Oh, okay, that wasn't working before, but now it is. So we'll see if this works. And I remember trying this earlier. Sure. Create a new save. Okay. Yep. Now this is a cool game. It's a shooter, very stylized. It's 3D, and everything is in sync with the music. And at the time, there's a lot of hype. It was like synesthesia or synesthesia, where you feel senses. Like when you hear sound, you might see that sound as something visual, which is actually a problem. That's it's like a psychological problem that some people actually have. And this was a game kind of built to evoke some of that because everything is in sync with the music. It's a really cool game. But yeah, so I'm pressing start and nothing is happening. So something is a little tricky. I don't know what's up with this emulator. It could be like a configuration problem. But yeah, I'm pressing every button and nothing is working. So I can't even get out of this game. So if you press select and start at the same time, it's supposed to quit out of the game, so it's doing nothing. So I'm going to reboot the Pi real fast, and you'll actually see the speed. So it's sad. It's like, the game, it's running. It's just something's wrong with the controls there. So maybe something to sort out from the software side. It's not playable yet, but worth coming back to and trying later to see if there's a way to fix that issue. So we'll boot this back up. This is a RetroPie that I'm using, and it's a excellent little distribution. It basically ties together a bunch of different software. Like Emulation Station is the front end. All these emulators are using like RetroArch as their core. So there's a lot of good stuff in here that's happening. So Dreamcast was a no-go, but close. So let's do the last one. Is PSP, the PlayStation Portable. So I never had this system, but it was very similar to the PS2. It had similar hardware. Now this one I've tried a couple games. The top one, this is Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins, and we'll try it after I try the second one. This one is Castlevania Darkness of something or other. Oops, let me go in here. And this Castlevania one actually works, and it seems pretty fun. So let's see. We'll let this thing load up. So yeah, memory sticks, blah blah blah. And you'll see as this plays, like the emulation seems spot on. Never had this system, but it was one that looked good. Here we go. It's in German for some reason. I don't know if this is a German version of the game, but it makes it a little more interesting. The Dracula X Chronicles. All right, let's try this out. Do start. Oh, press the start button. Okay. There we go. So yeah, let's start this. The sound is there's a little glitchiness to it. It's not perfect, but I mean, look at those graphics. That's pretty darn smooth. I mean, this looks spot on to me. Again, it had similar hardware as the PS2. I think the PS2 is still a little faster, but for a portable system, that's impressive for back in the day. All right, so let's see. I'm starting out on some kind of a stagecoach here, and once it gets going, it's classic Castlevania style. So I've got a whip. Oh, of course I just got nailed by... That is not... Okay, so I need to... This is kind of a weird starting level. It's like you're on this stagecoach. You've got to get this guy. And he just keeps kind of throwing things at you. And then I think he runs away here. Okay, now I think we get into the game a little bit. So let's see how this goes. So this looks pretty good to me as far as emulation goes. It seems pretty smooth. You can hear the music, excellent quality. So this feels a lot like every other Castlevania, which that's not a bad thing. This is a great series of games. Let's see. Yeah, I think you can get different weapons. Oh wow. Oh, that's a nice one. That's a good weapon. So, short level. Just walk to the right. Have some cutscenes. Let's see what's happening in this game. Oh, uh-oh. Some kind of bad guy. Oh, maybe he's bad. Maybe he's not. I don't know. We'll see what happens. How lovely. Uh-oh. Something tells me I'm going to have to save this girl.
No! I'll never submit to your master. I'd sooner die here.
Uh-oh, wow.
So much the better. Besides, once you marry my lord, death will lose all meaning for you.
All right.
Richter.
All right, let's go. This is running pretty well though. I'm impressed. I did not expect the Raspberry Pi to be able to play PlayStation games, PlayStation Portable games, because this is similar to the PS2. Now I looked to see. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any PS2 emulator built into RetroPie. So maybe there's some experimental thing. The problem is the PS2 had a really crazy processor architecture. It had like 6 different CPU cores. And you had to do a lot of multiprocessing, and so that's really hard for modern systems to emulate, because you're not just emulating one CPU, you've got like 6 of them, and they all ran at pretty high speeds. So, but this is pretty good. I'm going to consider that a success. Now I'll load up Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins, and this one we'll just try this real briefly. And there's some kind of graphical glitches with this one where it let's see, there's no game data. Yes, begin the game anyways. Where like not everything is rendering, so it's like the levels turn invisible at some point. So it's something to be aware of. Like check the RetroPie wiki, and they've got kind of a compatibility list in a Google spreadsheet, and you can kind of see what people have seen. So, all right, we'll do standard mode. Now, I remember the original Ghouls and Ghosts on Nintendo, and man, that was a hard game. Every game back then was a hard game, but this one really took the cake. So, like, it starts out pretty promising, like, but then now I just fired my weapon, and all, heck breaks loose here. So the sound is glitching out, and that's not right. Now, we can try one thing. I'm going to exit out of it. One cool thing in RetroPie, when you start a game up, if you press a button, oops, I'm going out of the game, you can go into a menu. It's like right now, if I press a button, and it lets you change the emulator. So some of these systems have multiple emulators, and like I had to switch around, like Game Boy Advance, I was saying, I had to move to a different emulator. So if a game doesn't work on one emulator, you might try another one. Let's see what emulators we have. So we have LR, PPSSPP. LR means Lib Retro, which uses RetroArch, so it's doesn't really change much, but it gives you like a standard kind of interface to it. I don't know, let's just try PPSSPP and see if this runs. I don't think this is going to run any better because it looked like the one I was using before had the same core. So let's just see. Oh, this is cute. My controls aren't working, so that's one annoying thing. If you don't use a Lib Retro emulator, you sometimes have to go in and manually reset all your controls. So, oh man, I can't even exit out of it. So that's kind of annoying. I'll have to see if I can get the keyboard here. But anyways, I think that's it as far as the games, the systems I wanted to try. So, oh geez, wow, now I've really done something. How do I exit out of here? Exit to menu. Yeah, can we do that? Let's see if there we go. Oh boy, wow, now it's in the game here. So that's cute. How do I get out of here? Nice interface to that emulator though. So okay, I think that'll get me out of here. There we go. So okay, so that's RetroPie. So yeah, just to summarize, so we went through, played the NES, the Game Boy, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, PlayStation, Saturn, Dreamcast, and PlayStation Portable. And out of all of those, I would consider all of them to work pretty well, except for Dreamcast. There's something weird with the controls. I think once I can figure that out, it looked like it was playable. Saturn didn't really look like that was going to work. But otherwise, things seem pretty solid. PSP seemed to have a few glitches, but it's definitely worth trying it out. So I kind of wanted to have some fun here, just try out some of these games and things. It's something a lot of people like to do with the Raspberry Pi, and I think the Raspberry Pi 3 is definitely worth checking out if you do a lot of emulators and games and things. That extra bit of speed is definitely going to help a little bit. And I'm not doing any overclocking or anything to my Raspberry Pi, so you might be able to crank it up and get a little bit better performance. But for stuff like Nintendo 64, it looks like it's pretty solid, and all of the older systems like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, seems like those will still run really well too. So I'm going to call this a success. I'll end the stream, so thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe to YouTube. You can watch this stream later on there, and then also subscribe to Twitch, and you can see when I do these live broadcasts. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and I'll see you Friday. I'm going to do another Bluetooth Low Energy stream. So see you guys later.